I walked past her desk every single day for 10 years. 10 years of polite nods, quiet mornings, and the faint smell of lemon cleaner trailing behind her like a shadow. Maria was just there, part of the furniture, part of the routine. I never thought about her life outside these walls. I never asked. And when I finally opened that locker, when I saw what she'd been hiding all this time, I realized how blind I'd been, how wrong. Because the letters I found weren't just letters. They were confessions, gratitude for something I never did, and the truth behind them, it shattered everything I thought I knew about this place. I'm the head of operations at a mid-sized marketing firm in Philadelphia. It's not glamorous, but it's stable. Good pay, decent people, the kind of job where you can coast if you're not careful. And I'll admit it, I coasted. I showed up, signed off on reports, smiled at clients, went home. I wasn't unkind, but I wasn't present either. I lived in my head, in spreadsheets, in the next promotion. The people who kept the office running, maintenance, cleaners, reception, they were background noise. I'm not proud of that, but it's the truth. Maria started working here the same week I got promoted to my current role. She was in her late 40s then, maybe early 50s. Quiet, small frame, always in the same navy blue uniform. She cleaned the floors after hours, emptied the trash, wiped down the break room counters. Sometimes I'd stay late and hear the soft hum of the vacuum down the hall, a rhythmic sound that became as familiar as the hum of the air conditioning. I'd wave if we crossed paths. She'd nod. That was it. 10 years of nods. I knew almost nothing about her. I didn't know if she had kids, where she lived, what she did on weekends. I didn't know what made her laugh or what kept her up at night. She was a figure in my peripheral vision, always there but never really seen. When someone in accounting made a joke about her shoes, old worn sneakers with duct tape on one side, a few people laughed. I didn't laugh, but I didn't say anything either. I just looked away, pretended I hadn't heard. That's the thing about silence. It's its own kind of cruelty. It's the violence of indifference, and I was guilty of it. Looking back now, I remember other moments. Small things that should have told me something if I'd been paying attention. The way Maria would sometimes pause by the window on the 3rd floor, staring out at the street below with an expression I couldn't read. The way she kept her phone in her pocket, checking it constantly during her breaks. The way her hands shook sometimes when she poured herself coffee in the break room at dawn before anyone else arrived. I saw all of it. I just didn't see it. There's a difference. The office had its rhythm. Monday morning meetings, Wednesday lunch runs, Friday afternoon slowdowns. Maria fit into that rhythm like a metronome you stop hearing. She'd arrive at 6:30 in the morning, before most of us, and leave around 3. Sometimes I'd see her in the parking lot, walking to an old Toyota with a dented bumper. She always carried the same canvas bag, faded and patched at the corners. I never wondered what was in it. Never wondered why she always seemed to be in a hurry, why she never stayed for the occasional staff gatherings or holiday parties. I remember one Christmas, 3 or 4 years ago. The company threw a party. Nothing fancy, just pizza and cheap wine in the conference room. Maria was cleaning up afterward, long after everyone had left. I was working late, finishing a presentation. I walked past the conference room and saw her there, alone, carefully boxing up leftover food. She was wrapping slices of pizza in napkins, placing them gently in a plastic container. At the time, I thought she was just being thrifty, taking leftovers home. I didn't think about why she might need to, didn't consider that maybe food wasn't something she took for granted. Then last month, everything changed. It started with something small, ridiculous even. I lost my watch, a gift from my father, engraved on the back with his initials and mine, intertwined. I'd taken it off in the bathroom one morning and forgot it by the sink. By lunchtime it was gone. I checked, lost, and found nothing. I asked around. No one had seen it. Panic set in, not because of the monetary value, but because of what it meant. My father died 3 years ago suddenly, a heart attack in his sleep. That watch was all I had left of his voice, his presence. The weight of it on my wrist reminded me he'd believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. I tore my office apart looking for it, went through drawers, checked coat pockets, retraced my steps a dozen times. Nothing. The watch had simply vanished, and with each passing hour I felt more untethered, like I'd lost the last physical connection to my father. I know how that sounds. Overly sentimental, but grief doesn't always make sense. Security suggested checking the cleaning staff lockers. Just a precaution, they said, with that careful tone people use when they're implying something ugly without saying it outright. I hated the implication, but I was desperate. The assumption hung in the air like smoke. Someone who cleans for a living might steal. It made me sick, but I didn't push back. I just nodded and agreed. So I went down to the basement with a manager and a key. The lockers were old, green metal, lined up against a concrete wall streaked with water stains. The air smelled like damp mop water and rust, with an undertone of industrial soap. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. A maintenance cart sat in the corner, bristling with spray bottles and rags. The space felt forgotten, like a place people only visited when they had to. We found Maria's locker, number 12, her name on a faded label written in ballpoint pen. Someone had decorated it years ago with a small sticker of a sunflower, now half-peeled and yellowed with age. I hesitated, my hand on the lock. It felt wrong, invasive, like I was about to violate something sacred. But I turned the key anyway, telling myself it was necessary, that I had no choice. The watch wasn't there, but something else was. Dozens of envelopes, white, standard size, stacked neatly in 3 rows, bound with rubber bands. All of them addressed to the same place, our office. Our company name, our address, written in the same careful script. No stamps, never sent. I pulled one out, my hands unsteady. The flap wasn't sealed. Inside, a handwritten letter. Neat, careful script, the kind that takes time, that requires thought. The kind you write when words matter. I started reading. Dear friends at the office, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need to say thank you. Because of the fund you created, my son is still alive. The treatments are working. He smiles now. He asks about school, about his friends, about the future. I never thought I'd see him run again. I never thought I'd hear him laugh. You gave me that. You gave him that. I will never forget your kindness. I clean these floors with a grateful heart. Every tile, every corner, I do it thinking of you. God bless you all. Maria. I stared at the page, read it again. Fund? What fund? I looked at the date, 2 years ago. I pulled out another letter. Same tone, same gratitude. Another one, and another. Some were recent, some were 5, 6 years old. All of them thanking us, thanking me by implication, though she never named names. For a charity fund that didn't exist, for a kindness we'd never shown. The manager beside me was reading over my shoulder. What is this? She asked. I don't know, I said quietly. My stomach turned. My hands were shaking. I carefully placed the letters back in the locker, trying to restore them exactly as I'd found them. Like if I was careful enough, I could undo the intrusion. Do we have a charitable fund? I asked. For employees in need, something for medical emergencies? She frowned, thinking. Not that I know of. We have the standard benefits, health insurance, but no discretionary fund. Not in my time here anyway, and I've been here 12 years. Check with HR, I said. Please, I need to know. I closed the locker carefully, like I was handling something sacred. My hands were shaking. I didn't understand. If we didn't create a fund, who did? And why did Maria think we had? The question followed me back upstairs, gnawing at me. I went to my office and pulled up HR records, payroll, everything I could access. Nothing. No deductions, no fund, no paperwork, no trail. I called our CFO. He had no idea what I was talking about. Said he'd been here 15 years and never heard of anything like that. I spent the rest of the day distracted, useless in meetings. My watch was forgotten. All I could think about were those letters, that gratitude, the idea that Maria had been walking these halls for a decade believing we'd saved her son, when we'd barely acknowledged her existence. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, watching the shadows of tree branches move across the plaster. The wind outside sounded like whispers. I kept seeing those letters, that handwriting, the gratitude in every line. She thought we'd saved her son, but we hadn't done anything. We'd walked past her for a decade, barely acknowledging her existence, and somehow she believed we were angels of mercy. The disconnect was unbearable. It made me feel complicit in something I didn't understand. Like I'd accepted praise for a kindness I'd never shown. I got up around 3 in the morning and sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee I didn't drink. I thought about calling someone, but who? What would I even say? I found letters in the cleaning woman's locker, and now I can't sleep. It sounded absurd, but it didn't feel absurd. It felt enormous, like I'd stumbled onto something that mattered more than anything else I'd touched in years. The next morning, I did something I should have done years ago. I waited for Maria to arrive. She came in at 6:30, like always. Quiet steps, her navy uniform pressed and clean, a canvas bag over her shoulder. I met her in the hallway before she could start her shift, before she could disappear into the maintenance closet where she kept her supplies. "Maria," I said, "can we talk?" She looked up, startled. Her eyes were dark, tired, with lines around them that spoke of sleepless nights and long worries. Did I do something wrong? The question hit me like a slap. That was her first assumption, that she'd done something wrong. Not that I wanted to talk to her like a human being, not that I might have something to say that wasn't a criticism or a request. No, nothing like that. I need to ask you something. It's important. We sat in the break room. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, that electric hum that becomes white noise after a while. The room smelled like old coffee and the faint chemical tang of cleaning spray. She folded her hands on the table, waiting. Her fingers were rough, calloused from work. Short nails, no polish, practical hands. I didn't know how to start. How do you ask someone about their most private gratitude? "I found your letters," I said quietly. "In your locker. I'm sorry. I was looking for something I lost," and her face went pale. She pulled her hands back, clasped them in her lap. "I didn't mean... those were private. I wasn't going to send them. I needed to write them. To say it somewhere, even if no one heard. Audrish, I know, I understand. But Maria, I have to ask. The fund you mentioned, the one that helped your son, we don't have a fund like that, we never did." She blinked. Confusion flickered across her face, followed by something like fear. "But the checks, the letters, they came from here, from this address. I thought..." Her voice trailed off. I watched understanding dawn slowly, horribly. The possibility that she'd been wrong, that she'd spent years grateful to the wrong people. "What letters?" I asked gently. She reached into her bag with trembling hands and pulled out a folded envelope, worn soft from being carried. It was old, creased from being opened and refolded many times. She handed it to me like she was giving up a piece of her heart. Inside was a typed note on plain paper, no letterhead, no signature, just a few lines. "Maria, we've heard about your situation. Please accept this small contribution toward your son's care. You are valued here. You matter. A friend at the office." Clipped to it was a check stub, $5,000, dated 4 years ago. I stared at it. The account number was blurred from time and handling, but the memo line said, "For Gabriel," her son's name, written with care. "There were more," she whispered. "Every few months, sometimes smaller, sometimes more. They came in the mail, always from this address. I thought the company set up something for me. After I told Susan in HR about Gabriel's leukemia, about the bills, the treatments we couldn't afford, the medication that cost more than I made in 3 months. I thought you all decided to help. Susan. She'd retired 3 years ago, moved to Florida with her husband. I made a mental note to track her down. How much? I asked. Total. Over the years. Maybe 40,000. Maybe more. I kept every letter, every stub. I have them in a box at home. I wanted to thank everyone, but I didn't know who to thank. I didn't know if it was one person or all of you, so I wrote letters. I never sent them because I didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. I didn't want people to think I expected anything else. I just wanted to say it, to put it somewhere. Does that make sense? It made perfect sense. More sense than anything I'd heard in years. I felt something crack open inside me. $40,000, quietly given, anonymously, by someone in this building. Someone who saw her pain and responded with such profound kindness that she spent a decade writing thank you letters to ghosts. Someone who understood that true generosity has no name, no face, no expectation of return. Tell me about Gabriel, I said. If you want to. She looked surprised. Then something in her face softened. He's 17 now, a senior in high school. He wants to be a teacher, elementary school maybe. He loves kids. She paused, her eyes distant. He was diagnosed when he was 7, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The doctors said he had a good chance, but the treatment, it was so expensive. We didn't have insurance that covered everything. My husband had left 2 years before. It was just me. I was working 2 jobs, but it wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. Her voice broke. She took a breath, steadied herself. I remember the day I got the first letter, the first check. I thought it was a mistake. I called the bank 3 times to make sure it was real. I cried for an hour. Gabriel asked me why I was crying, and I told him angels were real, that sometimes they look like regular people, but they're angels anyway. I had to look away. My throat was tight. He got better, she continued. Slowly. The treatments worked. He lost his hair, got sick, had bad days and worse days. But he fought, and I could afford to let him fight. I didn't have to choose between medication and rent, between treatment and food. Someone gave me that. Someone I never met gave me the ability to save my son. I started asking around, discreetly. I talked to department heads, longtime employees, anyone who might know something. No one admitted to it. No one seemed to know. I checked with the bank, but the checks had been cashed years ago, and privacy laws blocked me from tracing the account without a subpoena. I wasn't going to take it that far. This wasn't a crime. It was the opposite. It was something holy. But I needed to know. I needed to understand who in this building had that kind of heart. Days passed. I became quietly obsessed. I'd sit in meetings thinking about it, distracted, turning over names in my mind. Who had the means? Who had the motivation? Who cared that much? I made lists, crossed off names, added them back. I felt like a detective, but I wasn't looking for a criminal. I was looking for a saint. I talked to people who'd been here longer than me, asked careful questions. Did anyone remember someone being particularly generous? Anyone who'd lost someone? Anyone who seemed to care about the staff in an unusual way? Most people looked at me like I was crazy. A few got defensive, like I was accusing them of something I wasn't. I was just searching. And then, almost by accident, I found out I was having lunch with Tom, our former CFO. He'd retired around the same time as Susan, moved to the suburbs, spent his days golfing and seeing his grandkids. We met at a diner halfway between the city and his house, the kind of place with vinyl booths and waitresses who call you Hun. We were talking about the old days, reminiscing about people who'd moved on, projects that had succeeded or failed, office politics that seemed ridiculous in hindsight, and I mentioned Maria, carefully. I said I'd heard someone helped her years ago, off the books, anonymous donations, medical bills. Tom went quiet. He stirred his coffee for a long time, watching the spoon go around and around. The cafe was busy, full of lunchtime chatter, but our table felt suddenly still. Then he said, "That was Richard. Richard, our old VP of sales. He'd died of a heart attack 5 years ago, collapsed in his office on a Tuesday afternoon. I remembered him vaguely. Tall, quiet guy, always in a suit, never made a fuss. Polite but distant. He'd worked here for 20 years before I even started. I'd maybe spoken to him a handful of times, passing conversations about weather and deadlines. I remembered his funeral. Small, quiet. A handful of us went. "Richard?" I repeated, shocked. "Why? Why would he do that?" Tom leaned back, his eyes distant. "He lost a daughter. Leukemia. Same thing Maria's son had. She was 8 years old. Emma. Beautiful kid. Loved to draw. Richard was never the same after that. His marriage fell apart. He threw himself into work, but you could see it in his eyes. The absence. The weight. He didn't talk about it much, but I think when he heard about Maria's boy, something in him just broke open. Not in a bad way, in a necessary way." I sat there, speechless. Outside the window, people walked by, living their ordinary lives, unaware of the story being told at our table. "He started sending her money," Tom continued, "from his own account, his own salary. He asked me to help him keep it anonymous, said he didn't want credit. He didn't want her to feel indebted or uncomfortable. He just wanted the kid to have a chance his daughter didn't. He said, 'Tom, if I can't save Emma, maybe I can save someone else's Emma.' That's what he called Gabriel. Someone else's Emma." I felt my throat tighten. I looked down at my hands, my vision blurring. "How did he even know?" I asked. "About Gabriel?" Susan told him. She was worried about Maria. She'd seen her crying in the bathroom one day. Asked what was wrong. Maria broke down, told her everything. Susan mentioned it to Richard because she knew about his daughter. She thought maybe he'd understand, maybe he'd know how to help through official channels. Instead, he just started helping, directly, every month, sometimes more if there was a big expense. He tracked Gabriel's treatment schedule, sent extra when he knew there was a hospital stay coming up. He paid attention. Did anyone else know? Just me. He needed help setting up the anonymous mailings, making sure the address looked official. I helped him with that, but he swore me to secrecy. Even after he died, I kept the secret, figured that's what he'd want. "Did Maria ever know?" I asked. "Did she ever find out it was him?" "No. Richard made me promise. He was adamant about it. He said if she knew, she'd feel indebted. She'd try to pay him back or thank him every time she saw him. He didn't want that. He didn't want her to feel like she owed him her son's life. He wanted her to just live, to be grateful to the world, maybe, but not to him specifically. He said the best gifts are the ones where you never know who gave them. That's—" I couldn't finish. There were no words. Tom nodded. He was a good man, quiet about it, but good. The kind of good that doesn't need witnesses, the kind that happens in the dark when no one's watching. Her son, Gabriel, is he okay now? Last I heard, yeah, he's in remission. Teenager now, 17, 18 maybe. Wants to go to college. Richard would have loved that. He used to ask me about the kid sometimes, never directly. He'd say things like, "I hope that boy is doing well," or "I hope the treatments are working." He cared so much. It was the only time I saw him light up after Emma died, talking about Gabriel, knowing he was helping. I left that lunch in a daze. I walked back to my car slowly, sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes without starting the engine. I felt like I'd been hit by something, the weight of it, the beauty of it. I was thinking about Maria cleaning floors while her son fought for his life, about Richard writing checks in silence, carrying his own unbearable loss, transforming it into someone else's hope, about all the invisible goodness moving through the world, unnoticed, unacknowledged, and me walking past both of them for years, seeing nothing. I drove back to the office. The city moved around me, cars honking, people talking on phones, the smell of food carts and exhaust, but I was somewhere else. I was thinking about what it means to be good, really good. Not the performative kind, the kind that gets posted on social media or earns tax deductions, but the kind that costs you something, the kind that no one sees, the kind that asks for nothing back. I decided Maria deserved to know the truth. Not because it changed anything, but because Richard's kindness deserved to be named, because anonymous generosity is beautiful, but so is knowing you weren't forgotten, that someone saw you, that your pain mattered to someone, that you weren't invisible after all. I called her into my office the next day. She came up hesitantly, still worried she'd done something wrong. The fear in her eyes broke my heart. How many times had she been called into offices and reprimanded? How many times had she been made to feel small? I gestured for her to sit. I told her everything. I showed her the conversation notes, the confirmation from Tom. I told her about Richard's daughter, about Emma, who loved to draw, who died at 8 years old, about how he couldn't save his own child, but he saved hers, how he carried his grief like a lantern, lighting the way for someone else, how he asked for nothing, expected nothing, just gave and gave, because it was the only way he knew how to survive his own pain. She cried, quietly, with her hands over her face, her shoulders shaking. I got up and closed the door to give her privacy. I found a box of tissues, placed it on the desk beside her. I didn't say anything. Sometimes silence is the only appropriate response to grief and gratitude mixed together. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red but clear. "I wish I could have thanked him," she said, her voice breaking. "I wish I could have told him what it meant, what Gabriel means to me, to our family, to the world." "You did," I said. "Every letter you wrote, he would have felt that. I know he would have. And I think he didn't want thanks. I think he wanted exactly what he got, to know that somewhere a kid was laughing who might not have been. That was enough." She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Gabriel is 17 now. He's a senior in high school. He wants to be a teacher, elementary school maybe. He's good with kids, patient. He volunteers at the children's hospital sometimes, reading to the young patients. He says he wants to give back, that someone gave him a chance, and now it's his turn." "Richard would have loved that," I said. "He's healthy, happy, he has friends, he has a future. He's applying to colleges, talking about majors and dorm rooms and all the normal things 17-year-olds should talk about, because of Richard. Because of you, too," I said. "You fought for him. You kept going when it would have been easier to give up. You worked 2 jobs. You never stopped believing. That matters just as much." She smiled just a little. It was the first time I'd ever really seen her smile. It transformed her face, made her look younger, lighter, like a weight had been lifted. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. Why are you telling me this now? You could have let me keep believing it was the company. Would have been easier." I thought about that. "Because you deserve to know the truth, and because Richard deserves to be remembered. Not as some faceless charity, but as a man who turned his worst pain into someone else's best chance. That kind of goodness shouldn't be invisible. It should be told. It should inspire people." She stood to leave, then paused at the door. She turned back, tears still wet on her cheeks. "Thank you," she said, "for telling me, for caring enough to find out, for seeing me." That last part hit me hardest. For seeing me. Like being seen was a gift in itself. Like she'd spent so long invisible that someone simply noticing her existence was remarkable. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time. The office sounds filtered through, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, someone laughing down the hall. All of it ordinary, all of it precious. I thought about Richard, about the kind of man who turns his grief into someone else's hope, about Maria, who spent 10 years writing thank you letters to a ghost, who cleaned floors with gratitude in her heart, about all the people I'd walked past, never really seeing. I started paying attention after that, really paying attention. I learned names. I asked questions. I found out that Carlos in maintenance was putting his daughter through nursing school while working 2 jobs. That Jenny at reception was caring for her mother with Alzheimer's, helping her get dressed every morning before coming to work with patience and love. That David, the night security guard, volunteered at a soup kitchen on weekends, served meals to people who reminded him of his younger self when he was homeless 20 years ago. People I'd dismissed as background noise had entire worlds inside them. Entire histories of quiet courage, complex lives full of sacrifice and love and struggle and triumph. I started having lunch with people I'd never talked to before. I learned their stories, their dreams, their fears, and every single one of them was remarkable. Every single one of them was fighting battles I couldn't see, carrying weights I couldn't measure, and every single one of them deserved to be seen. I also set up an actual fund. A real one this time. I pitched it to the board and they approved it. We called it the Richard Mercer Employee Assistance Fund. It's modest, but it's there. For emergencies, medical bills, unexpected crises, whatever someone needs and can't manage alone. We fund it through voluntary payroll deductions and company matching. It's not much, but it's something. It's a start. Maria was the first to donate to it. Not much. Just $20 from her paycheck each month. But she wanted to give back, she said. She wanted someone else to feel what she felt, to know that someone sees them, that they matter, that they're not alone. The fund has helped 3 people so far. A receptionist whose apartment flooded and lost everything. A warehouse worker whose wife had a stroke and needed in-home care. A janitor, another janitor, whose car broke down and couldn't afford repairs to get to work. Small things to some people, everything to them. Each time we help someone, I think of Richard. I think of how his one act of kindness is still rippling forward, still creating more kindness, still changing lives. I see Maria differently now, not as the woman who cleans the floors, but as the woman who wrote letters of gratitude for a decade and raised a son through hell with grace I can't even fathom. I see her strength, her dignity, the way she carries herself with quiet pride, the way she hums sometimes when she works, soft melodies I don't recognize, the way she always has a kind word for everyone, even the people who ignore her. She's teaching me how to be human, how to be good. How to turn suffering into something that helps rather than harms. I see everyone differently now, because the truth is, we're all just walking past each other assuming we know the whole story. But we don't. We never do. Everyone's fighting a battle we can't see, carrying a weight we can't measure, and the least we can do, the very least, is acknowledge that, is see them, is ask them how they're doing, and actually wait for the answer. Gabriel came to the office once, a few months ago. Maria brought him by after school. Tall kid, shy smile, backpack slung over his shoulder, headphones around his neck. He had his mother's eyes, dark and thoughtful. She introduced him to a few of us, and he shook hands politely, the way teenagers do when they're trying to be grown up. I wondered if he knew how close he'd come to not being here. If he knew about the man who saved him without ever meeting him, who died without ever hearing his name spoken in gratitude. Maybe Maria would tell him someday. Or maybe some gifts are meant to stay quiet, passed down as stories rather than facts. Before they left, Gabriel looked around the office, at the desks, the computers, the ordinary, boring walls, and he said, "This is a nice place. My mom always talks about how much she likes working here. She says the people are good." Maria smiled and squeezed his shoulder. And I realized what he meant. Not that the office was nice, but that the people in it were. That somewhere in this building, someone had cared enough to save his life, and that mattered. That changed the shape of the world. That made everything, the commute, the work, the routine, mean something more. I pulled Maria aside before they left. "Does he know?" I asked quietly. "About Richard?" She nodded. "I told him last week. I showed him all the letters, the check stubs, everything. He cried. Then he asked if he could visit Richard's grave. We went together. Gabriel brought flowers. Daisies. He said he remembered liking daisies when he was little. He stood there for a long time and then he said, 'Thank you. I'll try to be worth it.' I told him he already was, just by being alive and kind. That's all Richard wanted." I had to turn away. My eyes were burning. I still think about those letters, stacked in that locker, unsent. Gratitude poured out into the void, hoping someone, somewhere, would feel it. And maybe they did. Maybe Richard felt it, wherever he is. Maybe that's how kindness works. Not loudly, not for credit, not with press releases or recognition ceremonies, but quietly, in the margins, where no one's watching. And maybe the point isn't to be seen, maybe the point is just to do it, to give when it costs you, to see someone's pain and meet it with your own bruised, aching heart, to turn your worst moment into someone else's best chance. I've started carrying one of Maria's letters with me, not the original, those belong to her, but a photocopy she gave me permission to make. It sits in my wallet, folded small. Sometimes when I'm having a bad day or feeling cynical about humanity, I take it out and read it. It reminds me that goodness is real, that people are capable of extraordinary compassion, even in ordinary circumstances. That a VP I barely knew saved a child I'd never met, and that a cleaning woman I ignored for a decade taught me more about grace than anyone else ever has. I don't walk past Maria anymore without stopping. I ask her how she's doing, how Gabriel is, what he's learning, what he's excited about, if she needs anything. We've had coffee a few times, just the two of us in the break room before everyone else arrives. She tells me about Gabriel's college applications, about how nervous he is, about how proud she is. She tells me about her life, her hopes, her memories. She tells me about her husband who left, about the years of struggle, about the nights she wasn't sure she could keep going. And I listen, really listen. It's the least I can do. It's small, but it's something. And sometimes small things are the only things that matter. A nod that becomes a conversation, a question that becomes a connection, a moment of attention in a world that moves too fast to notice. These are the things that change lives. Not grand gestures, not dramatic rescues, just consistent, quiet attention, just seeing people and letting them know they're seen. Last week, Maria brought in photos. Gabriel at his senior prom, grinning in a rented tux that was slightly too big. Gabriel at a football game, laughing with friends, his arm around someone's shoulders. Gabriel accepting an award at school for volunteer work. He tutors elementary kids who are behind in reading, gives them the patience and attention they need. She showed them to me with such pride, such joy, and I felt honored that she wanted to share them. This kid who almost wasn't here is thriving. He's giving back. He's creating more kindness in the world. Richard would have loved that his gift kept growing, kept multiplying, kept reaching forward into a future he'd never see. He's going to make it, Maria said, looking at the photos. He's going to have the life I dreamed for him, the life Richard gave him, and he'll never forget that. He'll carry it with him. He'll pass it on. And that's the thing about kindness. It doesn't end, it multiplies. One act of generosity becomes 10, becomes 100. Richard saved Gabriel. Gabriel will save others. And on, forward into time, creating ripples we'll never fully see. That's the real legacy. Not money or success or recognition, but the lives we touch, the kindness we set in motion. I asked Maria if I could share Richard's story. Not publicly, not for recognition, but with the staff, so people would know what happened here, so they'd understand that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. She thought about it for a long time. Then she said yes, but only if we could do it right, only if we could honor him properly. So we did. We organized a small gathering in the conference room, nothing fancy. Just people who wanted to know, people who were curious about the fund, about the man it was named after. About 30 people showed up. I told Richard's story, about Emma, about his grief, about Maria and Gabriel, about the letters, the checks, the decade of silent generosity, about how he saved a life without ever asking for anything in return. The room was silent when I finished. Then Maria stood up. She'd asked to say something, and I'd agreed. She walked to the front, her hands clasped in front of her, and she spoke. "I cleaned these floors for 10 years, thinking I was nobody," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "I thought I was invisible, just the cleaning lady, just someone people looked past. But Richard saw me. He saw my pain. He saw my son, and he did something about it. Not because he had to, not because anyone was watching, but because he was good. Because somewhere inside all his hurt, he found room for mine. She paused, gathering herself. Gabriel is alive because of Richard, that's a fact. But it's more than that. Gabriel is kind because of Richard. He learned that strangers can care, that the world has hidden angels, that pain can be transformed into love. Richard didn't just save my son's life, he shaped his soul. And now Gabriel wants to be a teacher. He wants to spend his life helping kids who need someone to believe in them. That's Richard's legacy. That's what his kindness created. She wiped her eyes. Several people in the room were crying. So when you use this fund, she continued, when you help someone who's struggling, remember Richard. Remember that you're not just giving money, you're giving hope. You're changing what someone believes about the world, and that matters more than anything. After the gathering, something shifted in the office. People were different, kinder, more attentive. I noticed small things, someone holding the door for Maria, actually waiting, actually smiling, someone asking Carlos about his daughter, remembering her name, Jenny getting flowers on her desk from anonymous colleagues who'd learned about her mother, David being invited to lunch by people who'd never spoken to him before. The fund grew. More people donated. We helped more people. And each time, we told them about Richard, about the man who started it all, about how kindness doesn't die. It just keeps going, keeps spreading, keeps lighting up dark corners of the world. I visited Richard's grave myself, a few weeks after Maria told me Gabriel had been there. It's in a cemetery outside the city, quiet and green. His headstone is simple, just his name, his dates, and a single line, "Beloved Father." No mention of his daughter, no mention of his pain. I stood there for a long time, not really knowing what to say. Finally, I just said, "Thank you for showing me what goodness looks like, for reminding me that we're here to help each other. I'll try to remember that. I'll try to be better." The wind moved through the trees. It sounded like whispers, like voices I couldn't quite hear. I left feeling lighter, like I'd been given permission to try, to fail and try again, to see people and care about what I saw. I still work at the same office, same job, same desk, same routine. But everything's different now, because I'm different. I pay attention. I see people. I ask questions and listen to the answers. I try to notice when someone's struggling, when someone needs help. I don't always get it right. Sometimes I miss things. Sometimes I'm still too caught up in my own head to see what's right in front of me. But I'm trying. And that's something. Maria still cleans the floors. She still arrives at 6:30, still leaves at 3, still carries that canvas bag. But now I know what's in it. Lunch she packed the night before. A photo of Gabriel in his prom tux. A worn paperback she reads on breaks. A rosary her grandmother gave her. The small, precious things that make up a life. And when I see her now, I don't just nod. I stop. I ask how she is. I tell her if I notice she's done something extra. Reorganized the supply closet, cleaned the windows even though it's not on her schedule, left fresh flowers in the bathroom someone donated. I see her work. I see her. And she knows it. I can see it in her eyes. The difference between being looked at and being seen. Gabriel got accepted to 3 colleges. He chose the one with the best education program, a state school about 2 hours away. Maria cried when she told me. Happy tears this time. She said she never thought she'd see this day. Never thought she'd watch her son walk across a stage to get his diploma, pack boxes for a dorm room, talk about student teaching and lesson plans and changing lives. He's going to be so good at it, she said. He understands what it's like to struggle, to need someone to believe in you. He'll be that person for his students. The last day before Gabriel left for college, Maria brought him by the office one more time. He'd asked to come, she said. He wanted to see the place that saved his life. We gave him a tour, showed him the conference rooms, the break room where his mother took her lunch breaks, the maintenance closet where she kept her supplies. He looked at everything with such attention, such reverence, like he was in a church instead of an office building. Before he left, he asked if he could say something to everyone. I gathered whoever was around. About 20 people standing in the lobby. Gabriel stood there, tall and healthy and alive, and he spoke. "I don't remember being sick," he said. "I was too young. But I remember being scared. I remember my mum crying when she thought I was asleep. I remember hospitals and needles and feeling like I was never going to be normal again." He paused, looking around at all of us. "Someone in this building saved my life. Someone I never met gave my mom the money to keep me alive. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of you, because even if it wasn't you specifically, you work here. You're part of this place. And this place has good people in it. People like Richard. People like my mom. People who see suffering and do something about it." His voice cracked a little. "I'm going to be a teacher, and I'm going to tell my students about this, about the stranger who saved me, about how kindness doesn't need a name or a face. It just needs to be done. I'm going to teach them that they can be that person, that any of us can be Richard. We just have to choose it." There wasn't a dry eye in the lobby. People clapped. Maria stood beside her son, crying, so proud she could barely stand it. And I thought about how one act of kindness, one man's decision to turn his grief into someone else's hope, had led to this moment. To this young man standing in front of us, whole and healthy and determined to do good in the world. That's what I think about now when I walk through the office. Not deadlines or meetings or promotions, but the invisible threads that connect us all. The ways we impact each other without knowing it. The small choices that become someone else's entire world. I think about Richard, writing those checks in private. Never telling anyone, never asking for credit, just giving because he could, because someone needed it, because his broken heart had somehow made room for more love, not less. I think about Maria, writing letters of gratitude for 10 years, thanking people who didn't know they were being thanked, cleaning floors with joy in her heart because she believed the world had been kind to her. I think about Gabriel, alive and thriving and ready to spend his life helping others, about how one man's daughter died and somehow that led to another child living, about how pain can be transformed into purpose. And I think about all of us, walking through our days, busy and distracted, barely noticing the people around us, missing opportunities to see, to help, to connect, missing the chance to be someone's Richard, to be the person who changes everything with one quiet act of grace. I don't want to miss those chances anymore. None of us should, because the truth is, we're all capable of extraordinary kindness. We're all capable of seeing someone's pain and meeting it with compassion. We just have to pay attention. We just have to care enough to act. Maria retires in 5 years. She's already talking about it, making plans. She wants to volunteer at the children's hospital where Gabriel was treated. She wants to sit with parents who are where she was, scared and desperate and alone. She wants to tell them it's going to be okay, that there are good people in the world, that help comes from unexpected places. "I want to be someone's Richard," she told me last week. "I want to give back what was given to me. And that's the thing. That's the whole point. Kindness multiplies. It spreads. It creates more of itself. Richard saved Gabriel. Gabriel will save others. Maria will comfort families who need comfort, and on, forward into time, creating ripples we'll never fully see. I found my watch, by the way, 3 weeks after I opened Maria's locker. It was in my gym bag, of all places. I must have put it there absent-mindedly, forgotten about it. The panic I felt when I thought it was gone seems ridiculous now. It's still important to me. It still reminds me of my father. But I understand now that connections aren't just made of things. They're made of actions, of choices, of seeing people and choosing to care. My father would have liked Richard. He would have understood him. My dad was quiet too. Generous in ways people didn't always notice. He'd pay for someone's groceries behind them in line. leave huge tips for struggling waitresses, send anonymous checks to families in need. I never knew about most of it until after he died, when people came to his funeral and told me stories I'd never heard. Maybe that's where I learned to not see kindness, because it was so quiet in my house, so normal. My father never made a big deal about helping people. He just did it. And somehow I grew up thinking that was unusual, that most people didn't do things like that. I forgot that goodness is supposed to be ordinary, that helping each other is supposed to be normal. Richard reminded me, Maria reminded me, Gabriel reminded me. And now I'm trying to remind others, not by preaching or lecturing, but by doing, by seeing people, by helping when I can, by being the kind of person who notices when someone's struggling and does something about it. It's not always big things. Most of the time it's small. Asking someone how they're really doing, listening to the answer, helping with a project they're overwhelmed by, covering a shift for someone who needs a day off, bringing coffee for the person who always looks tired, remembering names, remembering stories, remembering that everyone around us is human, full of complexity and pain and hope. The office is different now. People notice it. New employees comment on how friendly everyone is, how supportive. They don't know the story behind it. They don't know about Richard or Maria or Gabriel, but they feel the effects. They feel what happens when people decide to see each other, to care about each other, to help each other. That's Richard's real legacy, not the money. Not even saving Gabriel's life, as miraculous as that was, but the culture of kindness he created, the ripples that keep spreading, touching people who will never know his name. If this story made you stop and think, if it reminded you that there's goodness hidden in the ordinary people all around us, share it. Tell someone. Send it to a friend who needs to remember that the world isn't just cruelty and noise. Because stories like this, stories about the Richard Mercers and the Marias and the Gabriels of the world, they need to be heard. They need to be remembered. They're the antidote to cynicism, the proof that compassion is real, that sacrifice matters, that invisible acts of kindness shape lives in ways we'll never fully understand. And if you want more reminders that humanity is still worth believing in, subscribe. Some truths are too important to let slip by unnoticed. Some people are too remarkable to walk past without really seeing. Let's not miss them anymore. Let's be the ones who notice, who ask, who care. Because maybe that's the real lesson here. Not just that Richard was extraordinary, but that any of us could be. That every day we have chances to see someone, to help someone, to be someone's unexpected grace. We just have to pay attention. We just have to care enough to look. The world is full of Richards, full of Marias, full of people fighting battles we can't see, carrying griefs we can't imagine, showing kindness we'll never know about. They're everywhere. At the grocery store, at the gas station, in the office next to ours, cleaning our floors, serving our food, fixing our cars. Living quiet lives of extraordinary courage. We just have to see them. We just have to remember that everyone matters, that everyone's story is worth knowing, that the most profound changes often come from the smallest gestures. So look around, really look, see the people in your life, ask them how they are, listen to their answers, help when you can, give when it costs you something, be kind even when no one's watching. Especially when no one's watching, because that's what Richard taught us, that's what Maria showed us, that's what Gabriel proved to us. Kindness doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't need credit. It doesn't need applause. It just needs to be done. And when it is, when we choose to see each other, to help each other, to love each other even when it's hard, we change the world. One quiet act at a time, one letter of gratitude, one anonymous check, one life saved, one heart opened. That's enough. That's everything. Don't walk past people anymore. Stop. See them. Let them know they matter. Because they do. We all do. And we all have the power to be someone's Richard. We just have to choose it.